935 words within target range. Here's the final script. For 38 years, the official record said East Germany built the greatest swimming program in history on discipline and hard work. But the East German state made sure you'd never learn that program was really a secret doping regime, run on teenage girls who didn't know what they were taking. That's the story they tell. It isn't what happened. Someone made sure you'd never hear this. Here's what the records were rewritten to hide. In 1980, a 15-year-old named Rica Reinisch stood on the blocks in Moscow. She won 3 gold medals, 3 world records. The press called her a miracle of East German training. Coaches called her disciplined. Officials called her proof that their system worked. Nobody called her what she actually was, a test subject. Behind her, a government program had already been running for 6 years, feeding results nobody was allowed to question. Around her stood a wave of teammates the world assumed were simply the deepest talent pool in swimming: Petra Schneider, Kristen Otto, Barbara Krause. A country of 17 million people somehow producing more Olympic champions than nations 10 times its size. The official version says they trained harder than everyone else. Better coaching, better facilities, a culture obsessed with excellence. That's the story stamped into record books and swimming history for decades, repeated by broadcasters who never once asked what was actually happening in the training rooms behind the pool deck. Here's the first crack. Reinisch got sick. Ovarian cysts, at an age when most girls hadn't finished growing. She wasn't the only one. Swimmer after swimmer from the same program came forward years later with the same pattern: hormonal damage, organ damage, cancer. The coaches had a name for the pills. Vitamins. That's what 15-year-olds were told they were swallowing every morning before practice. They weren't vitamins. They were anabolic steroids, dosed by state doctors under a classified program called State Plan 14.25, and the girls taking them were never told. But the obvious explanation doesn't hold. You'd expect a doping scandal to break the moment someone tested positive. It didn't. East German athletes passed drug tests for over a decade. Not because they were clean, because the same state running the doping program also controlled the testing labs. The Foxes audited the henhouse, and they signed off on themselves every single time. International officials suspected something. They had no paper trail. That's not an accident. That's engineering. Here's what they actually buried. After reunification in 1990, investigators got access to something nobody outside East Germany was supposed to see: the files of the Stasi, the secret police. Buried inside was the paperwork for State Plan 14.25 itself. Dosages, growth curves, side effects, tracked and filed like inventory. Coaches reporting on their own athletes' menstrual cycles to adjust the drugs. 9,000 athletes, some as young as 10 years old, run through a program built by the government to win Olympic medals at any cost to the bodies carrying them. The Stasi didn't just hide the doping. They hid the damage. Files on athletes with liver tumors, heart conditions, infertility, all classified alongside state secrets, filed next to surveillance reports on dissidents. A gold medal and a redacted medical chart, generated by the same government on the same teenage body. Coaches who refused to administer the drugs were quietly removed from the program. Parents who asked questions were told their daughters were simply gifted. The machine didn't need everyone to agree. It only needed the ones asking questions to be replaced. Sports scientists ran the numbers like an assembly line. How much muscle mass a girl could add in a season, how deep her voice would drop before anyone outside the program noticed, how to time the doses around international meets so nothing showed up on the day it mattered. This wasn't improvisation. It was a 10-year research project with a filing cabinet for a conscience. That's the part that never made it into a highlight reel. By the time the files surfaced, most of the medals had already been counted, framed, and written into permanent record. Reinisch's 3 golds still stand. So do hundreds of others from the same program, across the same 15 years. Some of those athletes later sued the reunified German government and won compensation, not for lost medals, for lost health. Money doesn't rewrite a record book. The wins still count. The body still paid. And the part almost nobody talks about, some of the doctors and coaches who ran State Plan 14.25 went back to coaching after reunification. Different flag, same hands. A few trained Olympic swimmers well into the 1990s in programs that never mentioned where their expertise actually came from. Some moved to federations in other countries entirely, carrying methods nobody outside the old program fully understood, applying them quietly to a new generation who had no idea what history was standing behind their lane. The system didn't get dismantled. It got relocated. 38 years after a 15-year-old was handed a pill and told it was a vitamin, her name is still listed as a champion, and the men who made that decision for her were never listed as anything at all. The record books remember the swim. They don't remember the plan behind it. So the next time someone tells you a record was broken through pure discipline, ask who was standing behind the blocks. Ask what the paperwork looked like. And ask yourself how many of those files are still classified somewhere, waiting for a wall to fall.